Hey guys, it's time to begin our journey to the west. Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a servant spotlight for the absolute lewdest monk, Sanzou. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 5-star servants. I also have an event guide for the upcoming Journey to the West event, linked in the description below, so do check that out right after this. But now, onto Sanzou's stats. Sanzou has a max HP of 12,965, that's the lowest among all 5-star casters and very low overall for a 5-star, but her max attack of 11,658 is by far the highest among all caster servants. No other caster even breaks 11,000, but do keep in mind that she does have a caster modifier of 0.9 times damage, effectively making her attack 10,492, obviously extremely low for a 5-star overall. Taking a look at her skills, her first skill is Rapid Sutra Chanting rank A, which increases her Noble Phantasm gauge between 50 to 80% and increases her Noble Phantasm strength for one turn between 10 to 20%, both depending on level. Her second skill is Attractive Charms rank A, which applies Target Focus aka Taunt for one turn, and applies Damage Cut for one turn between 500 and 1500 damage, depending on level. And her last skill is Teachings of Sanzou rank A, which increases the Noble Phantasm gain of all allies for 3 turns between 10 to 30%, increases Critical Star drop rate for all allies for 3 turns between 10 to 30%, both depending on level, and it also applies Nullified Debuff for 1 turn to all allies. Taking a look at her passives, she has Territory Creation rank A+, which increases Arts Guard effectiveness by 11%, and Divinity rank D, which applies damage plus 125. As for her deck and Noble Phantasm, she has an Arts deck with Quick, Arts Buster, and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Gogyo-san Shiakan Shoraisho. It deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600 and 1000% damage modifier depending on level, and greatly decreases their critical rate for one turn between 80 to 120% depending on overcharge. This can be upgraded via an interlude, which upgrades the damage modifier to between 800 to 1200% depending on level. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that her Quick card hits 3 times, her Arts hits twice, her Buster hits once, and her Extra attack hits 6 times. She has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 0.82% and a star rate of 11%. And what this translates to is very strong Noble Phantasm gain due to the high Noble Phantasm rate and a 6-hit extra card, with average star generating just due to the 1 Quick card. Finally, I have confidence in saying that Sanzou is an offensive caster, and not just any offensive caster, but possibly the best one. For one thing, she boasts an incredibly high attack among caster servants by a country mile. And for another, she has a single target Buster Noble Phantasm that can be spammed. And this is the key to Sanzou's success. Her really high Noble Phantasm gain combines with a skill set geared toward enhancing that Noble Phantasm gain. The most obvious indicator of this is her first skill, Rapid Sutra Chanting. This gives her an 80% Noble Phantasm charge and a 20% buff to damage. This is what allows Sanzou to have really high DPS, as it essentially makes it easy for her to Noble Phantasm twice in a row, or Noble Phantasm immediately in a pinch. The extra damage is also nice, but the charge is the most important thing. This is Sanzou's best skill and shouldn't be underestimated. Along with that skill, Teachings of Sanzou is another very strong asset for Noble Phantasm spamming that she has in her arsenal. This gives team-wide Noble Phantasm gain and increases crit star drop rate, as well as nullifying debuffs for a turn. The Noble Phantasm gain that this skill gives is tremendous. It's 30%, the same as Nobu's strategy skill, but this is just a straight up better version because it gives more buffs and it has a shorter cooldown, making it very spammable. And finally, her last skill, Attractive Charms, has a taunt with damage reduction. This is an odd skill for Sanzou to have, as she's not really a tank given her low HP, and she really shouldn't be the target of any damage, although the damage cut that this skill gives is really significant, and this can be used to charge your Noble Phantasm gauge pretty quickly against the right enemies, as well as if you need to sack off Sanzou to an enemy Noble Phantasm in an emergency case. You should prioritize maxing Rapid Sutra Chanting first because it's your bread and butter skill and your DPS enabler, followed by Teachings of Sanzou for its incredible utility, and finally Attractive Charms as it's the most situational skill. Sanzou's Noble Phantasm, as I mentioned, is a single target buster, very rare for a caster, and it does pretty much what you expect it to do, damage. This Noble Phantasm is especially potent because post-interlude, the damage modifier jumps to 800% at Noble Phantasm 1, making it really hard hitting. Not every single target buster servant has a Noble Phantasm interlude, and the crit chance reduction for enemies is strong as well, considering that you're likely going to be facing assassins who crit a lot. And this is what Sanzou is built for. She's a Noble Phantasm battery who can fire off strong Noble Phantasms at a consistently fast rate, and even Noble Phantasm multiple turns in a row with the aid of her first skill. This is particularly great late game when break bars are introduced, because Sanzou can effectively knock off multiple health bars from assassin and berserker bosses within a couple of turns. Sanzou's Noble Phantasm charge and debuff nullification also allow great synergy with other casters, where she can be enabling even more Noble Phantasm spam while protecting the team from demerits and debuffs. It makes her a very strong NP gain battery. I should also note that whereas usually a mixed deck is a weakness because it prevents a servant from Buster Brave chaining, thereby reducing their maximum damage potential, in Sanzou's case this is more of a benefit, as she's not built to maximize damage, but instead she sacrifices damage in order to spam her Noble Phantasm, and an arts heavy deck allows her more opportunities to do that, as well as synergy with arts teams. In fact, Sanzou doesn't have many flaws. She's one of the most well-balanced servants in the game. She's not outright broken, but she doesn't have any major weaknesses in any particular area either. One of the few weaknesses she does have is just her low HP, which can be an issue for survival, and the fact that her taunt, while handy in some cases, doesn't do much for her overall kit. Sanzou may be known mainly for Noble Phantasm spamming, but just as important as that is her ability to synergize with any team and provide high utility. This is thanks to her teachings of Sanzou skill, which makes her one of the best Noble Phantasm charge batteries in the game. She pairs wonderfully alongside art servants who spam their Noble Phantasms like Waver, Tamamo, Media Lily, Irisfiel, Hans, Nero Bride, Robin Hood, Shiki, Uriel, Orion, Media, and Shuten. She can also work well with non-art servants who can benefit from extra Noble Phantasm gain, like Emiya, Rama, Gil, David, Nobu, Iskander, or Carmilla. And you also shouldn't underestimate her debuff nullifying skill. This not only stops enemies from applying debuffs to your team for a turn, but also stops them from debuffing themselves. In other words, if you use Sanzou with Fran, Tamamo Cat, or Jean, you can erase the nasty post-Noble Phantasm stun that they have. Finally, let's not forget Sanzou's an offensive caster, so she does appreciate damage buffs from Liz, Waver, Hans, Caesar, Nero Bride, Iskander, Helena, Shuten, and Shakespeare. Sanzou's Bondcraft Essence is White Dragon. It boosts the Buster card effectiveness of all allies by 20%, but lowers their defense by 10%. It's a high risk, high reward card, and it can be useful alongside servants like Gilgamesh, but do be careful with it. Instead, I highly recommend using Heaven's Feel, as most of your damage comes from your Noble Phantasm, or Black Grail if you have a healer on your team. Conversely, you can go for more Noble Phantasm gain instead, in which case a Fox Knight's Dream or Little Halloween Devil works best. Divine Banquet could be a great substitute for Fox Knight's Dream, and as always, 20-30 if you are using her as more of a support instead of for damage. Overall, Sanzou serves a much needed niche as an offensive caster. Quantity does matter over quality, especially later on in the game, and although there will be other offensive casters that come out, none of them really match up to Sanzou's insane DPS. She's also one of the most high utility servants around, not just an offensive powerhouse, but a reliable support for anyone in need of Noble Phantasm charging, and because of that she can fit into almost any team and make it much better. Sanzou also lacks major weaknesses aside from low survivability, though I should mention that although Sanzou is probably the best complete package when it comes to offensive casters, she doesn't have as much burst damage as others, but those are minor issues that can be made up for overall, so she gets an A- from me. I think a small tweak to her second skill could easily make her an A, but when it comes to the ideal mix between damage, consistency, and versatility, there's just no better caster than Sanzou. And those are my thoughts on the Spunk Monk. I know she's sandwiched in between a bunch of other great banners, so she probably won't get the attention she deserves, but what do you guys think? Are you planning to roll for her? Do you like her? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I will see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.